with a challenge where they have a problem they want you to fix. I guess I'm talking, you know this, I'm just talking through in my head.
Right.
And so the positives would be Mozilla knows what the problem is already.
Mm-hmm.
And so if your research works with what they're doing, it's a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, if you are, you're doing this technology, but aren't working in the communities, or you just want to see if some small part of it work, it's not as good of a fit. And that's where I think you've got the, throwing it on the wall and seeing what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the positive is the challenge. It is a challenge. It is a problem that's already been identified and needs a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing. But a bad thing is, there were some, like, what are we missing? This one doesn't quite, we think it's a great project, but it doesn't hit all their criteria because they're not doing, they're not fully solving this problem.
Yeah, they haven't thought. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. It's a really interesting way to put it, in that someone could still be talking about internet access, but because they haven't thought of the problem in the same way that Mozilla has thought of the problem, their solution doesn't quite fit.
And we had one of those, and it was tough to, but it wasn't a good fit for us, but it would have been a good fit for somebody else.
Yeah, I know. I know. I understand the project that you're thinking of, because I had a similar thought when they were presenting. What ideas do you think emerged? Right. So if the problem, even as the way Mozilla conceives of the problem, what kind of ideas have emerged from over the course of the challenge that you think have a lot of promise? And that could be like organizational, that could be political, that could be business models, that could be technical. Like anything that you think like, okay, more investment in that is a good idea, or more of this.
As you said, and I said too, there were a lot of like mesh type projects, but all of them came at them in a little bit of a different way, or most of them. And putting those groups together that is already doing this really good research, and letting them talk. And, as researchers that's what, they're going to steal my idea, and that's the horrible thing about it. But if in some way, shape, or form, Mozilla can figure out how to support, and they did sort of, because it wasn't just it was the top winner, but then others got money too. Supporting more than one idea and trying to get them to collaborate and share what they're doing that's good with each other. So, and it may not even, the way it wouldn't have really worked, because that wasn't the way this challenge was set up.
Yeah.
But for another challenge, if it was, trying to get the best four, and even be more specific, the 4 people that are doing this kind of technology and ranking them, and then them knowing at the end that they're going to have to work together and share knowledge to create something else.
Yeah, that's true.
So, collaborative.
Yeah, that was actually one of the questions that I had for you. Was, I know from talking to Mehan and NSF, like part of like the impetus for the challenge was that to grow the community of people that were working on these issues. So one of the questions that I was going to ask was like, how do you think the challenge did on that particular front?
I'm not sure that it grew the people that were doing it, only because I don't think anybody was really, in looking at the bios and the CVs and all that stuff, nobody was completely new to. I think this was too big of a project to be completely new and go, oh, let's do this. So is that?
Yeah. Yeah. But perhaps, like, do you think it was able to, like, were connections made that I wasn't able to see in person? Like, did the New York people talk to the Detroit people and, like, et cetera? Or did the judges, like, because you guys all work on the same sort of larger area as well.
Yeah, I definitely think, and that, I don't think for the participants on the front end that new people came in and said, oh, let's do this. But I do think during the process and after, especially after, there were some judges, as I said, were on boards of some of the projects that were put up. Mm-hmm. And they were recused from that, the voting on those. But I think then they had the ability to say, we need to reach out to those. And I think they were going to reach out to others and say, oh, how can we work this together? And some of the community organizations that came to the celebration, I did see them talking together and going, oh, we're doing this and how can you? So mm-hmm. I definitely saw collaboration towards the ends when the final projects were kind of shown and you're like, oh, there were things out there to see. So mm-hmm. I would say, there were definitely connections made then. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's why it's so nice to get everybody together in one room. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. What would you change about the challenge if you were to run this again? And another thing that, sort of related to this question is, is there something about the way Mozilla has conceived of the problem that you think could be developed further, nuanced, changed? So both substantively and in terms of the process, what would you change about this challenge?
With the process of being a judge, really, I wouldn't change anything. Mehan mm-hmm. really was an amazing navigator for all of us. Mm-hmm. I mean, we were supposed to have, we always wait till the last minute for everything. But mm-hmm. I couldn't get Flux access, and I needed it by Monday, and I tried Thursday, Friday. I mean, Flux was having issues. So Flux, that would be my one thing that needed to be fixed is Flux. You had to hold your mouth right and hope it was working.
Okay. That's the app thing that you guys are using?
That is our rubric system.
Oh, so, Mehan emailed us both, by the way.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
I didn't check it.
He can't seem to get back on the call.
Okay.
But he's saying that it's okay for you to talk about the winning projects and what excites you about them. You just can't talk about the specifics of the judging conversations that led to those projects being chosen.
And I was pretty good. I think I was very good.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry. So anyway, Flux is the Mozilla's system for applying for grants and reviewing grants. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it has bad days.
Okay.
It doesn't mess the data up, but sometimes you can't get into it. Mm. And so that was my flaw with it. As for changing the substance, it was my first grant and first challenge type thing, and I don't know that there would be anything that I would change. Sorry, It doesn't give you much, but...
No, I mean, that's also information, that's also data for me to have.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what you think should happen now between NSF and Mozilla. NSF is sort of like a silent partner in this. So one of the questions that I had was how much do you think it mattered that it was Mozilla? And you spoke a little bit about this already, because Mozilla has such a specific ethos around technology. But I was wondering how you think that impacted the kinds of finalists the kinds of applicants they were able to draw in.
I think adding NSF to Mozilla brings in a different type of applications. Like we got the university ones, which NSF is always going to get because it's NSF. But it also, and especially just coming back from MozFest, oh my gosh, have you ever been? Mm-mm. You should try to go one year. It is the most, and everybody said, oh, it's awesome, it's awesome. But have you ever been to an academic conference? I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so have I. And academic conferences, it's all for me, it's all for me. I'm here to present my stuff, and you're here to listen. And at MozFest, it was all about collaboration and working together and openness, and let's head out. I presented in the youth zone. Mm-hmm. And so we set up our on Friday was just setup day for facilitators, and we spent the day setting